Okay, so and I showed you the 60, and the 60 base now with the standard vise has a hole in it so that the 64 is that same base with the dual cam. The 66, which they no longer make, was that same base with added machining and parts to give it micro adjusters on the side. I can't say this is for sure, but I would look to see the 64, which is the slide with the dual cam, maybe to see a slide with a micro adjuster, so that that same trend can follow from the 60 to 64 to the 66 without the added machining. All that stuff is what makes Wicked Edge more expensive, because they spend the time and the money to do all that stuff, because it all matches up to the angle. It all matches up to the angle bars. That's what it's all about. But the 100 series with its separate bar lets you utilize the angles separately, and as a older generation, the Gen 3 Pro, because it got bigger, it forced the Wicked Edge design to get bigger, and the 130 square bar got longer. But as everything got bigger and longer, it made this triangle really big. So now when you're working with a micro adjuster, you're micro adjusting like this instead of like this, so it gave you great control over the precision. And that's what those of us that were nuts for consistency and as close as we can, and I like to work within half of 100, plus or minus 0.05. And to work like that, and that's quickly. If I want to get it dead on, it takes a lot more time, and I've done that too. Because of the height and all that, I learned to do that. The generations moved on, and now we have a smaller vise. So now I'm learning to accessorize and update the smaller footprint, which is more compact, which is a smarter way to manufacture it, consistent across the series. The 60 series and the dual cam all use the same two vices. It simplifies your manufacturing, so it keeps your costs down because everything is smaller and you're not doing a bunch of different things. I think it's a great engineering step. Plus, this vise somehow magnified the compression that this did, and it's easier to clamp the same knife. You can feel the pressure, but I think it's easier. Now, I'm still learning the balance between sharpening the same knife that I'm used to sharpening on a taller with the smaller vise. So that is why we add the riser blocks, to give us that advantage. With the dual cam vise, the same as the standard vise, by Wicked Edge standardizing everything, they all have the same characteristic shortcoming in my sharpening needs, is that they all pretty much will require at some point that you use a low angle adapter, because you can't get close enough to the vise as tall as it is in order to get that low angle setting. So the low angle adapter goes in between and raises your knife up like the taller Wicked Edge 130 vise. So that's why we put the risers underneath it to give us that edge, so we're not forced to take that step to use the low angle adapter, because what it does is it requires that now you're putting something between your knife and your clamp. As long as you can keep your knife clamped each time in your vise, it doesn't matter what you do, because you're setting your angle relative to the jawline. I'm going to stop here.